All right, what's up, Dragon Brood? I've been doing these periodic hot take videos for a minute, and this time y'all had a lot to say. This is the most responses I've had to one of my callouts for hot takes. So I narrowed it down to a few things. The first is that if you put a bunch of expletives in your hot takes, then you leave me to do more editing, so I'm already not using those. Also, there were a lot that were related to things that they had no real proof for. It was just like making a statement that was unrelated. I included a couple of those just so we could talk about those points, but generally I didn't include those either. But most of the others made the cut, so let's get into it. The first one we have here is from Ali Eldrazi, another creator that you should probably follow. He puts up a lot of stuff and does some really good streams. But he actually says Archenemy is the best way to play Commander. And this is an interesting take. I don't even know if this is a hot take as much as just like something people should explore, because Archenemy is actually pretty fun. And recently they included more of those in the Commander deck, so people are now exploring it. But it actually is a fun way to play, and it's a good way to balance if one player has a deck that tends to be stronger than everybody else's. You can kind of do a 3-on-1 or a 4-on-1, and it's actually pretty cool. So yeah, something to just check out if you hadn't. I don't know if I agree or disagree with this, but I do know it's definitely something people should explore and find out for themselves. All right, this one here from Kim Andre Bacon says, partner commanders should be banned as legal commanders. I disagree with this one. Like partners are a weird thing because I feel like when they're a problem, people really hate them. But I have literally watched entire weekends where I've watched piles of games at like Command Fest or travel to different stores, and I may have seen one pair of partners being played, and nobody seemed to mind. So if they're not rampant and they're not strong enough that everybody's doing it and doesn't seem too big of a problem, probably don't need to be banned as commanders. Okay, this is a large one from Flynn, I guess at Planets Project, says Wizards needs to pull away from releasing Commander product with every single set and go back to the once per year Precon cycle. Let cards in the main sets breathe and organically find their way into Commander decks. Then hold our hand with them. Okay, I see what you're saying there. Now, here's the thing. Like, first off, no matter what you do with Commander cards, like, the community's too big. Communication's too big. I think when people try to reminisce about the old days of Commander, like, oh, cards just magically found their way into Commander. They weren't things made for Commander. Like, that was also before everybody used Twitter, before EDH was a thing, before, all the resources that we have. So we're never going back to that world no matter what Wizards does. That being said, I did see a recurring thing that there was a fair amount of people that said they'd rather just have Commander decks a couple times a year. I think with us also having at least one or two Universes Beyond products every year that also happen to be Commander, like you'd still be getting Commander probably 4 times a year, which I think is totally fine if you want to do that. The other side of that, though, is retailers do make a lot of money, and I do mean even local game stores selling these Commander decks, so there is a want for them. So the other part of that discussion is Wizards is only doing it because we keep buying them. If we quit buying them so regularly, they'd quit spending the money and the resources to do it. And right now, they're buying them, so they're going to keep making them. At the Birds S says, Paper Brawl should be the casual multiplayer format of choice, and EDH should be the secondary format. That's probably never going to happen. I mean, it's a hot take, don't get me wrong, but realistically, it's just not a thing. Like, nobody plays Brawl in paper. Like, you can't get people converted to play Brawl in paper right now. The only way that happens is if something comes up where Wizards pushes a thing, a bunch of creators do a thing, Brawl becomes like the on-camera format for 2 or 3 popular channels, and then people want to try it out. Like, it's going to take a movement to get people to want to play Brawl over just playing Commander. I don't think we're anywhere near this happening. Like, should it be the casual multiplayer format? I will say this. There are benefits that if you were to do this, Wizards moves more standard product because people want to build more standard decks, and then maybe some number of those people want to try standard or try like the 60 card version of the thing they built. So like, it's possible, but yeah, I can't. It's definitely a hot take. I just can't necessarily agree with it because of just a lot of things around it not making that possible right now. At Pharmacist Judge, which supports us on our Magic Mike's podcast, so thank you so much, says, we need Commander promos as rewards for paper standard tournaments, push more people towards 60 card formats. Yeah, this is one I actually kind of agree with. I don't even know if it's that much of a hot take, but we've seen recently where you put some of the high value cards from Modern, from Pioneer, like gets people to want to go into these store championship tournaments or whatever, build standard decks and play. So that's like step one. And I kind of get it because you're already taking people who already play 60 card formats and just try to drive them to another 60 card format. But if you were to include some of the big cards in Commander that maybe you haven't reprinted in a while and just say like, hey, here's a way we're going to use these promos as reprint equity or a way to just release these and make them publicly available. Maybe people will show up when they're playing for a $50, $70, $100 Commander card that hadn't been reprinted in a minute. I could see that being a thing. Or at least do it enough to where like the top 4 all get a thing. And then maybe more people are even more motivated. Because while, don't get me wrong, I was able to win one of the Urza sagas or whatever. Like that was really nice. But if the top 4 were all able to get them, I think you would have more people trying for these events. Because the odds of getting the reward become higher. But yeah, I think something along these lines could possibly work. Cactus Imp says the modern aesthetic of Duskmourn is completely okay and serves to distinguish it from other planes and sets. As long as it's not overdone in other expansions, it's neat to see MTG's take on 70s 80 horror trope. You know, realistically, after it was all said and done, I didn't really feel like it was too far of a departure from regular Magic. Like, sure, there was like TV-like things, so we just, you know, they're TVs powered by whatever. There's like the electro guns that capture the ghost or whatever. But that's not really that different in the way they were presented. I mean, maybe the TV. I guess there was actually a thing called a baseball bat, so we had to acknowledge that baseball exists. But overall, it really wasn't done in a way that it was intrusive. We still have lots of creature types we're familiar with. Like, the art still felt close to being Magic traditional art. And so I really had no problem with it. I think overall, this was fine. Probably a lukewarm take, but yeah, Duskmourn's done really well, so I don't see why they wouldn't do something like this again. At Commander Tavern says, if EDH's purpose was to formalize the casual experience, it shouldn't have based itself on the legacy ban list. And the blanket banning all silver border cards, which were designed for casual, non-tournament play in mind. Instead, only the egregious ones should have been banned. Yeah, I disagree with this. A little bit of a hot take. It's more than lukewarm. But my issue here is that's a reasonable starting point because we're just saying like, hey, this isn't that, right? This isn't just an old thing to play all the overexpensive, ridiculous cards. Honestly, I'm pretty sure if those all existed, Commander would never have gotten to where it is. I think if somebody sat down and they played against people that had libraries and Moxes and Lotus and Time Twisters and whatever, like the game experience would just not be good and people wouldn't play. I mean, honestly. And I think if you do want to play those, you should really check out stuff like Canadian Highlander. They have a point system where you can play all those cards, and you can kind of pick and choose which ones are more important for your deck. And it's actually kind of cool. You should check it out if you haven't played it. As for the silver bordered cards and things being banned, like I've been part of those discussions, and truthfully, I think the issue is there's a lot of silver bordered cards that just lead to a negative play experience. And then having to go through and say like, this one is, this one isn't, this one is, this one isn't. I think that's even more tedious for anybody who wants to include them into a deck. It's easier to say they either are or they aren't. I think even for tournament play, having with the last unset, having some that are tournament legal and some that aren't, like that's already been a little bit confusing and bothersome. I think it's just easier to say you can't play with them. Like I don't have to worry about you having Denim Walk or having to balance something on the back of my hand or whatever it is, right? I don't know. Like, I get what you're saying. I really do. I get the feel of this of like, hey, if it's casual, let all the casual things be played. But the reality is, I think fewer people want the silver border cards than want them. At Bobby Christine says, the average EDH deck should be barely stronger than an MH3 Precon. This is definitely a hot take. I disagree with that, though. I think, like, in a casual format, your deck's just going to be different levels for the different people you play with, right? So I don't think having to set a standard for what that is would be the right call. And MH3 Precons are good, but they're kind of also all over the place using different power levels of cards. So, I mean, should the average deck have to be better than those? You know what I mean? Like, why could the average deck or a deck somebody wants to play just be fun, over-the-top battlecruiser Magic? Like, that probably works for some groups. So I think having to set a standard is probably just a bad idea in general. Shane's birthday tweet, a channel supporter. Thank you so much. At Gamble Anthony is his username, says 7th edition foils will always be the best foil cards. This was hard for me to judge. I don't know if this is a lukewarm take or not. Like, I think foils in general look kind of bleh, even old ones. So like, I don't really. I'm one of those people. I've never understood the hype on foils as a whole. It doesn't even matter if it's Magic or other games or whatever. I think I've seen some games where they do some nice like crystal foiling and some special raised etch foil stuff looks kind of cool at times. But generally, I'm just not a foil person. And I've played a lot of card games and sold a lot of card games over the years. So to say like seventh is the best, I mean, they don't look that much different than other foils to me. So I'm just going to disagree. But, let me know in the comments how you feel about foils, because I have a hard time judging this one. Scott P. at SR Pad says the game would be improved if the 4 of limit were reduced to 3 of. I thought about this one several times over the years, and I disagree with it. It's a good hot take, but I disagree with it because a lot of decks right now aren't even playing 4 ofs of a lot of the cards they're playing. So if that's the case, now don't be wrong, like mono red or something's like hyper aggro, really streamlined, yeah, they're playing 4 of everything. But if you look at a lot of the big decks, like they're playing 2 ofs or 3 ofs, or they're tutoring up the 1 or 2 copies of something or whatever. So I don't think it changes things all that much. Like, does it make it overall better? I don't know. I mean, I've played other games that have 3 ofs instead of 4 ofs. It really just changes slightly the consistency, but within the rules of the game, they've worked fine. The better players are still better. The better decks are still better. So I don't think it changes much. I mean, we could do it, but I don't think it's going to make the impact that the person thinks it is. At Jarvis_Moonbeam says, green breaks the social agreement as casual commander worse than any other color. Yeah, this one I disagree with. Like, to me, blue is infinitely worse. Like, Rhystic Study just interrupts the game perpetually. Cyclonic Rift has us all pick stuff up so we can play another, 8 turns. Like, those are infinitely worse than anything green's doing. So, yeah, hot take, but I totally disagree. We have at JJ_Mickey_media says, players of all formats get frustrated, complain about cards they don't like to play against, and call for bans. It's not particular to Commander players. Oh yeah, this is absolutely true. And this is every game, not even just Magic. I see it all the time. Like, hell, I play Teamfight Tactics. There's stuff that sometimes I look at and go why is this in the game? This should be a thing. But I also acknowledge that I'm not as good as most people probably would think they are. I know I'm very mediocre at the game. So some stuff is just going to seem insane, even though it's really not. So yeah, I think this is just a common thing. Something you lose to a lot, something that stops your deck from doing the thing it does. This is just the people who say their favorite limited format is often the one that they won the most at. I get it. It makes sense. It's human nature to like the thing that's better for you. I hate the thing that makes you not have as much fun. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's not a Commander thing. It's an every format thing. It's an every game thing, truthfully. It's just people call for bans until the thing they like gets banned. I'm going to try this. It says, at Sonhuro Helzi, I think is how you would say that, but the Black Mage says the best standard format was Alara plus Zendikar. Disagree. But again, everybody's going to like whatever one they like. I think this is just like I was just saying about the limited formats. But truth be told, I don't know, you probably have to go even further back. 97, 98 standard was probably cool, where you're playing a bunch of 1-ofs with crazy, or 1-drops with crazy abilities and 5-color green and all kinds of stuff. That was a crazy fun time. But again, I think people are just going to pick whatever time they had their most discovery in Magic, and Magic was the most new and magical, or where they had their most success, or often where people are going to pick their favorite formats. Can I guarantee you, if I ask you to tell me what's your favorite standard down in the comments, there's going to be 50 different answers. But yeah, this one's a hot take for sure. Definitely disagree. At Milkastray says, landfall without ways to destroy a large number of lands leads to unfun inevitability that I don't enjoy playing against. Okay, this is kind of reiterating some of the stuff we just talked about in the last 2 hot takes. Definitely hot take, definitely disagree. To me, this doesn't even make sense. The lands aren't the problem with the landfall. Once they're in play, destroying them doesn't do anything. The person already got the landfall triggers. All the things that have landfall are the things that are the problem. So I'm not sure land destruction would solve that problem. So yeah, definitely disagree here. At Show Carney says, numeric value is a dumb way to describe a deck's power. Saying your deck is a 7 is meaningless, but saying your deck is high power casual is instantly understandable. That I can instantly understand that frame of reference. Here's the thing. I do agree with this. I don't even think this is a hot take. I think trying to set a standard for this is how we measure our decks or whatever, because somebody's always going to be dishonest in that regard, right? I'm going to give you three quick things that I asked people. I said two, held up three. Like, the first is, what are you expecting to get out of this game, right? Are we expecting everybody to go after each other? Are we wanting to see everybody decks do something really cool? Whatever, right? If I ever have concerns, I just ask these three questions. I start with that one. The other is, how would you describe your deck as far as strength? Not a number, just like, is it strong, weak? You know, are you playing a bunch of new cards, old cards, whatever, right? And then the third is, how many turns do you expect the game to go? Right? If we're sitting at the table where everybody says, oh yeah, I'm expected to go 8 turns, 10 turns, whatever. Okay, cool. We can have a fair game. If people are trying to play a 4 to 5 turn game and they're going to be tutoring stuff up, probably not going to be a match, right? Somebody wants to play a 12 turn game. Cool. We can play slower decks that are building up a bunch of tokens and doing crazy stuff. Between those three things, when those have been answered, honestly, I haven't had a bad play experience almost anywhere I've been playing. The only time was one person who obviously was lying and just played some fast, silly stacks type deck, and then we had to kill them first. At LaAA Ron F, if you know, you know, bring back mana burn. I'm not even reading the rest of this. No, most of us playing a format with 40 life, so burn would help teach efficiency, but it doesn't do any of that. Like, every time I see somebody mention this, it's like, oh, but you have to be more careful with your mana. Like, do we need to slow games down anymore? Like, no, we don't. Like, yes, hot take. No, I disagree. Like, mana burn really doesn't do anything. We at least have one commander that if you want to play mana burn, like, makes mana burn matter. So go for it. Play that one if it's a thing for you. But often, most people wouldn't be taking more than one or two every once in a while anyway. So why even have the rule? I thought it was cool that the rule got removed. And honestly, there are very few situations where this would even matter. So I'm cool with it not even being a rule we have to worry about or reference and have it show up in weird corner case situations. So yeah, no, we don't need to bring mana burn back. There's much bigger, better things we need to be worrying about. At Comio Paul U says, limited is still the best format and there should be more gameplay content for it. Again, I think I'm going to disagree with this one. I don't think it's much as a hot take. It's just a preference of whether you like limited or constructed. But here's the thing. I mean, unless things have changed drastically, the last numbers I've seen at many stores, but also even at Wizards and whatever, is just constructed play outnumbers limited play immensely. And if you took away pre-releases, it would be very minimal by comparison. Not saying that people don't draft and limited shouldn't be accounted for and people shouldn't enjoy draft. I think you absolutely should, and I think it's fine. But at the end of the day, people want to play with the cards they've collected. That's just how it is. Why is there more content for it? Because people can play with cards they've collected. They don't have to open new stuff. They don't have to buy new stuff. Like, they can literally just hop in and play. They can put in the research, pick their favorite cards, build around them, do whatever it is they want to do, and then just play Magic. So there's always going to be more content for constructed. And there is a lot of limited content. There's people that do good stuff out there. MTG Nerd Girl. There's a few, actually. You know, Numot the Nummy is another one I can think of. Like, these people do content all the time. So they're out there if you want to go watch them. But generally speaking, you're just going to always have more constructed format content because more people play constructed formats. Like, people are making it because people want to watch it, right? If more people were watching more limited content, then there would be more people making more limited stuff. That's just kind of how it is. At 13PoiNZ says, in casual Commander, you could run all basic lands and see no functional difference to a mana base full of non-basics. Disagree. I play mostly casual level Commander, believe it or not. And even when I'm like just scrapping decks together really quickly and playing a bunch of basics, like there's a lot of times you just can't cast stuff on time. Or you need like 2 white and 2 red, but you only have like 3 and 1, right? You can't do it. Or you're playing a 3-color deck and you don't get the 3rd color, or you don't get 2 mana of the 3rd color or whatever, right? There's a reason the multi-lands exist. Plus a lot of the multi-lands also have other features where you're either gaining life or you can filter mana into them for different things or whatever. They serve different functions other than just being multiple colors. So are they, like, at a casual level, is it as drastic? No, that's probably where this is coming from and probably more accurate. But yeah, they're still going to be benefited by having multi-lands. I don't think that's really a question. At BMAC Collector says, Universes Beyond is awesome, even though I know almost nothing about the IPs they've chosen. The top-down designs to fit character and storylines have made some of the most unique, open-ended, and dynamic designs that I've seen in modern MTG. I think this is just a lukewarm take I don't even know. It might be tepid. I don't even know if it's lukewarm. That's a word I don't use that often. Yeah, this is a tepid take. I mean, the reality is Universes Beyond has been a big success, right? It doesn't matter if we're doing full sets, if we're doing commander sets, like these things are selling. And again, I agree with this because I'm not a fan of many of the properties they've done. But the cards are neat, the strategies they're building around are cool, the themes work, and yeah, I don't really see a reason to be upset at them. Like they've done well. They are selling some of the best selling products. I mean, I think what was it? The Warhammer 40K commander decks I think had to go into like 5 printings or something. And Lord of the Rings was their best selling set ever. So it's like people are wanting these and are buying them and they're good. So yeah, I again, this is more just a tepid take, but yeah, the Universes Beyond experiment, if you want to call that, is working. At JD Newland says, a rotating 100 card competitive 4-player format like Brawl, but played in RCQs, Pro Tours, Worlds, etc., and backed by Wizards would be great move for the game. As more people enter the game as commander players, why not have a standard EDH for this kind of comes back to people just don't play Brawl in paper. And again, could we do it if there was a whole movement and a push? Sure. 4-player? That's tough. Because here's the thing. I think competitive commander is still working through the issues of a casual thing being made competitive. And especially when you're talking about the possibility of collusion or somebody king making or whatever, that's a problem, right? When you're talking about something competitive where other people directly affect your outcome, especially in a situation where they may not have any stake in the game, right? Like if they get eliminated, they don't get anything, they don't get any rank points, whatever, but they decide who is going to win in advance and maybe win some pile of money, a invite to Worlds or whatever. I think we still have to work through a lot of that before we can make anything official for a competitive setting. So yeah, pretty good hot take. But I think we're a long way from this working. We have to work it out at I think the highest level first, where people are willing to take those hits and put themselves in that situation with a format that's already out there, like Commander and the competitive Commander community. And then we can explore some other stuff potentially. But this feels like it has 2 different hurdles to jump instead of just one. My old friend Tim Stolzwitz at Tim at More Fun. LGS level standard is dead forever. It's definitely much weaker than it was. I don't know if I'd say dead forever, but again, I think this is more concerted effort thing. Because I think what a lot of people forget is pre-COVID, most people played standard because it was the most popular format for PTQs, for cash tournaments, whatever. So that's why people were playing it, right? People didn't really play standard on a casual level. It was all for the competitive level. So if standard gets brought back for more competitive things and people are holding more regional stuff that's standard and more cash tournaments that are standard, then you'll see more people pick it up and start playing it. If people don't start making the put, well, we're seeing a little bit of it now because of the store championships having some higher value cards and people building standard decks and people just discovering that standard's really freaking good right now. But I think you're going to still need at least another good, I would say almost probably 1.5 2 years of this to get people back on track. And one of the most important things is going to be making whatever we called those like decks you could pre-buy that had just like format specific decks. Because we did it for standard for a while. Then we did like one season of like Pioneer and then we didn't do them anymore. But yeah, if we could get those where you can walk in and buy a $35, $40 deck that's 90% of the way of being a standard legal deck that you can play, that'll help out a lot too, because then people just walk in and purchase something. So I think there's things that could still be done. So I wouldn't call it dead. I wouldn't even call it quite on life support, but it's maybe a couple of steps away from life support right now, at least in paper at the LGS level. At Merlader says, precons in every set have ruined the appeal of precons. Yeah, this is absolutely not true. This is kind of what I referenced to somebody else who said something about precons earlier. Retailers, like literally, I talk to retailers regularly. I'm in some of the biggest retailer groups. Like the reality is many stores can't even get enough commander decks on release because they're selling so many of them. So yeah, people are buying them. So it has not ruined the appeal of them at all yet. It may not feel that way to you, but I'm just saying the numbers say otherwise. Sales are sales. Lord Dino says, white is no longer the weakest color, red is. I don't even know. Like, I can't even judge on how hot this take is. But I think this is something we get too caught up on all the time. We're always worried about what's better or worse, what's more powerful, what's faster, whatever. Like, literally every set. I get some number of people when we're streaming come in and say, oh, do you think this set's stronger than this set? Do you think this set's faster than this? Do you think this is going to be a more powerful standard than we're like, why not just explore the cards and have some fun and figure it out? Like, even when people said like white is the weakest color, I didn't even think white was the weakest color. So it's probably all a matter of perspective. So like, is red the weakest color now? I'm like, maybe, I don't know. But like, do we need to measure what's more powerful or worse or whatever? As long as everything's being close to balance, I don't really care. And if we're saying weaker, are we saying like red is a 6 while everything else is a 7 or an 8? Like, is that terrible? Like, I don't really know. So yeah, this might be true. I'm being honest, like, I don't really know. I don't think about Magic that way, so I couldn't even gauge this one, but probably good for discussion. I'm sure some of you in the comments will have an opinion on this one. At Yummy says Universes Beyond should be limited to Commander only. Hot take, wrong take. I mean, Lord of the Rings was the best-selling set ever. I mean, people are already eagerly awaiting Final Fantasy and the Marvel sets next year, and those are going to be full sets. And I guarantee you they are going to sell like hotcakes. So should they be limited to just Commander decks? On what basis? Because here's the other thing, right? If we take something like Marvel, we can't squeeze that into just 4 Commander decks, right? Or even 5 Commander decks. It's probably likely that you can't even get a license like Lord of the Rings if you're only going to do 4 or 5 Commander decks, right? You probably have to showcase certain things, tell certain parts of the story, have certain elements available. Like, and there's a lot of stuff that you just wouldn't be able to include by doing only Commander decks. So I think there's some products that make better Commander decks, like Warhammer, right? Because it's broken up specifically into factions. But then there's other stuff like Lord of the Rings or like Marvel that are just going to make better full sets. At Comic Geek Punk says that due to product fatigue, the bubble from the last 4 years or so is finally popping. Duskmourn is underperforming like crazy. It's also noticeable in R&D design stuff. This is being pushed out way too fast with little regard to meta warp. This is just wrong because Duskmourn is not underperforming. I saw 2 people say this, and this is not accurate. Almost every retailer I've spoken to that runs pre-releases, it was, if it wasn't their best pre-release, it was just short of Duskmourn. Like, they were all like 70% or better of Duskmourn or of Bloomburrow attendance. Sorry. So Bloomburrow was already the best-selling set of the year for most of the stores, and Duskmourn was the second best. So to sit here and say that like the set's not selling, their events weren't well attended, whatever, like right now it is not struggling. So I don't know where this is coming from, but at least the popular opinion in business social circles is that Duskmourn is selling just fine and even well. So I don't know why this is a thing. So yeah, I don't think this is just a wrong take. I don't know what it's based on. I would need to see some facts that differ. Maybe they've talked to one store that's doing poorly. I don't know, but everything I know says this is not accurate. At DDD_idiot says WotC should include a token pack for all pre-releases containing the new tokens. This is an interesting take. This one it's a good hot take. I don't know if I agree or disagree with this, right? I like the idea of having the tokens available though, because that is just a nice add-on for the pre-release. And truthfully, a lot of the rares you get that are stamped are not great anyway. Because, you know, you're just getting random ones a lot of the times within a different color, whatever. It just doesn't matter. And you don't end up playing with it. So I'm a little torn because I don't think you get both. I think you get either the promo card or you get the tokens. I think more people would like still getting the promo card or the stamped card so that they have a chance of realizing more value. So probably just keep the promo card. Now, if for some reason you could keep the promo card and still give everybody like a pack of, I don't know, 8 double-sided tokens or something, then sure, I say go for it. But I think if it were a case of replacing them, I don't think that's what people would want. So I think it's a neat idea, but probably only if you can get it in addition to the current promo. At SJC Alters says, I think having secret layers be limited print is totally okay. They're special edition copies of their respective cards. It's like a serialized cards. They should only be a certain amount available, and that's what makes them special. Yeah, this, I think because of what they're saying, I disagree. But in principle, I partially agree, and let me explain. I do think it's okay for them to be limited to some number. I do not think they should be limited to be as rare as the serialized cards. And under the current way that they're being distributed, they're released in a way that most people never even get a chance to buy one if they wanted to. Like literally, if you go to work at right now at say 9 o'clock and they go live at 11 a.m. your time or whatever, like you don't even get a chance to buy them because by the time you get off for lunch, that you can get on your phone and you get in the queue, you still got an hour wait, so you're trying to stay in the queue while you're eating your lunch, and then they're already sold out by the time you even get a chance. So like, yeah, that's not a good thing. And at the end of the day, both Wizards and the companies they're working with are probably leaving some amount of money on the table by not just selling more stuff. Now, don't be wrong, I don't think it should be like infinite amounts you could buy, but if they just left them open for a 24-hour period and said, all right, they go and sell at 9 a.m. today, and then they close at 8:59 tomorrow a.m., right? Like, great. Then everybody has a full 24-hour period to get an order in if they want some. You could buy 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 copies, whatever, and then that's it. They ship out later, everybody gets them. I think that's how they should be handled, and they're still limited, right? Because people aren't going to go crazy knowing there's a ton of them, right? People only go crazy because they know that they're going to sell out in the first couple hours, and then they can triple their money on a lot of these, or more in some cases. So yeah, I don't agree with this. It's definitely a hot take, but I think more people should be able to get them, and it actually benefits pretty much everybody in the chain. I don't think they should need to be a month long and be crazy orders, but I think even within one day, you would still have a limited product that other people would still want that they missed or forgot about or whatever. And I think we're going to end on this one. This is just, everyone should think about MTG less. It would be good for their mental health and they would enjoy it more when they do think about it. I think this is something that I agree with, but hobbies as a whole, but particularly gamers, I think we spend too much time getting into the weeds on a lot of our games. We get emotionally attached to every single thing, every decision within the game, every strategy, every deck type, whatever, the artist rendition of a character, but like we just get in too deep sometimes. And, I hate to use the phrase, but we kind of stop seeing the forest for the trees, There's some fun stuff we enjoyed. There's great times with your friends. There's your local game store where you probably met a bunch of people Like, there's a bunch of positive that just get lost because you can just get too deep into everything and worrying about stuff you don't need to. And again, I don't think it's just a Magic thing. I think gamers as a whole could probably benefit from this. We just need to disconnect for a little bit, so when we come back, we're looking at it with fresh eyes and we can appreciate it a bit more. My goodness, that was a lot, but we got through everything. Y'all let me know. There's probably some other hot takes y'all have. Let me know down in the comments, because I'm sure there's something. Or let me know if you totally disagree. Am I crazy? And if you don't follow me yet, go follow me over on Twitter and on socials, because I'll be doing these regularly, and then maybe you can be included in the next video. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.